Hey guys, welcome back to Online TESOL. Now we're getting started with Module 9, Lesson 17, Using Worksheets. Okay guys, so we're going to be talking about worksheets a lot today, and there's a couple of things you guys should need to know. Of course, we're going to start with our aims, of course, and we only got 2 aims for today's lesson. The first aim, of course, is we're just going to learn what worksheets are and the things you should keep in mind when you are making worksheets and using worksheets in class. With our second aim of today's lesson, what we're going to be doing is looking at some examples. So we're going to look at some examples of lots of different types of worksheets. Most of them are going to be kind of lower level. And I think the last thing we're going to do today, guys, is we're going to take a look at one of my own worksheets. So of course this worksheet is totally awesome, right? Because I made it. Okay guys, so yeah, we're gonna start with some easier worksheets, look at a harder one, but before we get started with all that stuff, we gotta talk about some really basic things to do with worksheets. It's gonna be a little bit boring, but we can get through this together, right? So I'll see you guys in a few seconds. Okay guys, so before we even get started to really talk about worksheets, first we gotta discuss this question that I've got on the board here. What are worksheets? What are they? Now, you're probably thinking right now, well, duh, Alan, I know what worksheets are. Okay, I get your point. You understand what worksheets are because, of course, you've been through the school system, you've done thousands and thousands of worksheets. I am sure of it, right? But just in case, I do want to explain what worksheets are. Of course, worksheets are any kind of exercises or activities that have been written or typed on paper and given out to the class, and maybe later collected again and kept for later use, right? You don't have to collect them again. Some worksheets might be disposable, but always keep the original copy because this will be so precious for you as a teacher, right? Because if you can build up a bunch of worksheets over time, this is gonna save you a lot of time and a lot of energy in the future. Okay, but I'm going off topic a little bit here. So I wanna write down a brief explanation of what worksheets are, right? So getting back to this here, they are exercises or activities. And by exercises, I don't mean the exercises you do in the gym. Oh, bad joke. Okay, so exercises are activities written or typed. Now, wait, I'm gonna take a quick break here. Written or typed, right? Now, a lot of you guys today, like you guys are so used to using computers and everything, so I'm assuming that a lot of you guys are gonna type up your worksheets. However, that doesn't mean that written worksheets are useless. I think it's still good from time to time to actually write something out because maybe you got a picture on it, or maybe you just don't have enough time to type something up. I don't know. It's really okay to use written worksheets in class, right? Typed ones might be preferable because it is going to be clear, maybe and kind of easier for the students to follow. And of course, I make typed worksheets myself, but that's mostly because my writing sometimes can be messy, and my drawings, well, you guys know about my drawings. But anyhow, so exercises or activities written or typed on paper that are given to the class and possibly, right, collected later and stored. Now that last part I use there, this verb here, stored, right? This doesn't mean like go to a store and buy a candy bar. I wish it meant that. But anyhow, stored means, of course, you're gonna keep it for later, right? Because just like I said before, if you hold on to it, if you store it, you can use it again later, right? And this is all about saving time for you, right? Okay, moving on to our second question here, I just have, what can they be used for? Well, obviously, they can be used for a number of different things, right? But in English class, we can use them for a couple of different things. So they can be used for, I'm just gonna write here, can be used for colon. Now I would start with oral practice in P's or G's. So oral practice in that kind of fruit. Yes, it's pears again. So oral practice in pairs or oral practice in groups, right? So of course, a lot of people when they take a worksheets, they actually don't think that you can use worksheets to help you with oral practice, but you can. And we're gonna look at some examples today actually, guys. All right, but more commonly I think is more often used for maybe like reading practice or writing practice, right? So it can be used for reading and writing practice. Now, the reading and writing practice could be done in pairs. It could be. Or if not pairs, it's probably going to be done by one person. It's probably going to be done individually. Or individually. Whoopsie, that looks messy. Okay, so that's about it. However, you could also use worksheets for possibly listening activities. You don't have to. Of course, we talked about that before, right? That's more of a handout, to be honest. That's when you maybe put some kind of graph or table and you give it out and use it for listening activities. Okay, so there are these two questions here kind of answer what worksheets are and what they can be used for. But why do we use worksheets? What's the point, right? Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss the reasons why we use worksheets. So I'll see you guys in a few seconds. Okay guys, so it's time to answer that question that I was asking previously. Why are worksheets useful, or how can they be useful? Now, if you're a lazy teacher, you might think like, I don't need to use worksheets. I have a textbook or textbooks. What's the point? Okay, yeah, and you kind of have a point there, right? But I think if you're a teacher and you only rely on the textbook, this is going to be kind of boring, and this is really not innovative, and sometimes, you know, you're going to want to spice up your class, right? You're going to want to take some chili powder or some, what do you call it, gochugaru, and you're going to want to put it into your class, right? You want to spice things up. So worksheets can be used in a number of different ways, and they're very, very useful for a bunch of different reasons. Now, I've written down 1 through 6 on the board here. We're going to try to think of 6 reasons why worksheets can be awesome. Okay, now in the first case here, like what I would like to mention first of all is, yeah, if you're a teacher and you only rely on the textbook, you're going to run into trouble sometimes, because sometimes there's going to be a problem. And what I'm going to say here is that textbooks sometimes, not all the time, usually textbooks you have these days are going to be pretty good, but it's not going to be perfect. But textbooks sometimes do not provide, and then this is a difficult word coming up here, sufficient practice. Okay, now sufficient means like good enough, right? So if it doesn't provide sufficient practice, maybe in the textbook there is no practice activity that goes along with a grammar lesson, right? Or maybe in the textbook there is no oral practice that goes along with a new structure or some new vocabulary, right? In this case, worksheets can be useful because if you think something is missing, you can add it yourself, put it on a worksheet, and hand it out to the class, right? So this is definitely going to happen to you from time to time. And if you're the kind of teacher that's, you know, a little bit lazy and you think like, well, they don't need to practice anyhow, you'll realize later that they will not be very good when it comes to that structure or that vocabulary or that whatever that you didn't practice because you were too lazy to make some worksheets. And I know about that because I can be lazy too, but anyhow. All right, so that's one reason. Another reason is because sometimes, and we're going to continue talking about the textbook a little bit here, but some exercises in the text may be too easy or too difficult. Okay, so again, solely